Hey, how's it going? Short film this morning. I don't think this is an important film. I'm just doing it because it popped into my head over the last day because I was asked for pictures of myself once again. I get asked for pictures of myself all the time, and I don't take a lot of pictures of myself. This is a film about the difference between a selfie and a self-portrait. And does it matter? I have no idea. I could be completely wrong about all this. I'm wearing my K7 belay jacket, yes, inside the house, because I got up and I went for a long run today, much longer than I would normally do, and I have not eaten a single thing all day, which means that right now my body is basically eating itself from the inside out. Now, you might think that's a bad thing. You might think, well, that sounds terrible. You're probably going to lose all your muscle mass as your body eats it up trying to stay alive. Well, that could be true. The funny part is, when I'm in this mode, I feel like I can perform. I feel like I'm alive, like really alive. No stimulants, by the way, just me. So, and I also have to pee really bad. And I figured if I don't pee before this film and I have to pee really bad, then I'll keep this film short because in essence, I don't think it's this important. But I'm going to do it anyway because it's my channel and you can't stop me. My wife left, which is another thing, not permanently, just for the day. And so the house is now mine once again. It was not all morning because she was set up right here. And when she's set up and in her zone, you do not get inside the perimeter. You do not cross the wire because you're going to get bit if you go inside that wire. So here we are. I got asked a couple of days ago again for an image of me to run with a blog post on somebody else's site. And they called and they asked for a specific image. And I said, look, I don't have a lot of pictures of myself. The picture that I had been using on my website is probably getting close to 10 years old. It doesn't even look like me. I divide up my life into pre-Lyme disease, post-Lyme disease. This picture was made pre-Lyme disease. I look young. I look healthy. I don't look that way anymore. And so to me, I always felt bad using this picture because I'm like, this is a misrepresentation of who I am. I've seen photographers do that in the past. In fact, when I first got into photography, I went to a lecture in San Francisco that was put on by a guy who was kind of a hero of mine. He's since passed away. And he walked in the room, and I was used to seeing the portrait that he would send out as part of his press package. And this guy walked in the room, and I was like, oh, there's his father. I wonder where he is. And then I realized, oh, that's him. He's clowning all of us by using a self-portrait from 20 years ago. I don't want to be that guy. So these people reached out and they said, we need this picture of you. You sent some pictures before, but they're not going to work. We need something that is reminiscent of blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, I am going to have to dig into the well here because I am not one of these people. I don't do this all day long. Hey, I'm looking great. Look at me. I don't take selfies. I find selfies revolting. I find it embarrassing for the most part. And I know those are harsh words. Is the selfie the end of the world? No. But is there a difference between a selfie and a self-portrait? I think there is. I think that there is a dramatic difference, and I'm about to walk through this, whether you wanted me to or not, but I need to give you a little background here. So, UT Austin, maybe 1990-ish. I'm just getting started. I'm a first-year photo student, and I'm in not the first class, I'm in the second class. Now, you would think the first class would have been called Photo 101, but it was not. It was like Photo 315 for some reason, something like that. 305, 315, Aquavelva. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't 101. And that class was an elective for anyone who had like any major in the entire university. All 50,000 students could take it as an elective. Consequently, it was held in an auditorium, and there were probably 300 students in there, the vast majority of whom were never going to take the second photo class, which meant you had to declare a major and get into that program. They just took it as an elective, so it was nearly a complete waste of time. The second class was where it went from 300 people to 8, and now you were like people who were dumb enough to be like, I'm going to be a photographer for a living, right? That's us. That was me in that class. And one of the first things that we were made to do was shoot a self-portrait with a 4x5 camera. Now, 4x5 cameras are like, I don't know, fumbling around in the dark for your keys when you're hammered, right? Not easy and not fun. They're cumbersome, they're slow, they're awesome. I do like me a 4x5, but not exactly a fast-moving apparatus, right? So when you're setting it up and you're a student and you have no money and you like barely have enough to buy film, you don't want to waste it shooting a picture of yourself. So there was a bit of a mutiny in the class about why are we wasting our time making pictures of ourselves? Like, let's get on with it and get into the world and find our stories and move on. And the faculty doing what the faculty normally does is comes back at you with art speak. And there's nothing that really rubs me the wrong way more than either artist statements or art speak from the photography side, where you're looking at a picture of someone's foot and they're waxing poetic about the lineage and history of the human foot and all this stuff. And you're like, dude, it's a picture of a foot, right? Okay, so it's a foot. Well, they came back with this like art speak. Now, there is a bit of credence to some of this art speak, sadly, because there is a photo art world and an art world, and it plays in those environments. So I get what the faculty was doing. They said, no, you can't skip this assignment. You have to do it. So we all went out and shot 4x5 pictures of ourselves. Mine were truly horrendous. I don't, thank God I don't have these anymore. I think I purposely burned them in a sacrificial soul cleansing ceremony years ago in the desert after eating like 5 pounds of peyote. But I got rid of mine because it was like me with a flag on a hilltop. It was just horrendous. It's embarrassing to even talk about it. But I shot it on 4x5, which is no easy feat, right? And even doing the assignment helps you become a little bit more comfortable with your 4x5. I then went on to shoot a range of other horrendously bad photos with my 4x5 before switching to a 35. But that's sort of the history of my first time being assigned, you've got to shoot a self-portrait. My generation, and I'm not saying my generation is better than any generation, we've got plenty of flaws, trust me. We pointed our cameras into the world. 2 generations later, when the technology became relevant and it was there, photographers began to turn the camera on themselves. They became the story. This is very much a part of the creative world today. The vast majority of creatives out there are turning the camera on themselves. I'm as guilty of it as anyone with my YouTube channel. You know, look, yeah, the depths of my hypocrisy are considerable. So, but my generation, for the most part, we turned our cameras out because there was no way to take a selfie, really. You could. And I've got this in my notes somewhere here. This is point number 2. Did I mention that? We pointed our cameras out, not at us. That's all I'm trying to say. Even still, right, we pointed our cameras out, but we all had that mirror picture where we took a photo, a selfie of ourselves in a mirror somewhere. Don't do that. Don't do that now. Don't do it again. I did it. You did it. We all did it. Don't do it again. That's all I'm saying. The mirror shot, don't do it. Number 3, number 1 was my history at UT Austin being assigned a self-portrait, not a selfie. That was not in the vernacular at that point. It was just self-portrait. I'll get to that in a minute. This is point 3. A lot of modern photographers take selfies all day long, every day. How do I know this? Because I'm around them and they're constantly taking pictures of themselves and sharing every single one of them. That to me is one of the most embarrassing things about modern photography is how this has become accepted practice. My advice to you, don't do that. Don't take selfies all the time, and certainly for the love of God, do not share them. Because every time something goes out in your feed, you are basically, in essence, saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, pay attention, I want your attention, I want your attention, I really want your attention, please give me your attention, I really need your attention, I'm desperate for your attention. Your attention is what makes me feel like a fulfilled human being. I need it, I need it, I need it, I want it, I want it. Every time you post a selfie. Then all of a sudden, you decide that you're gonna do a serious work and then put that out, and now you're asking for my attention once again. But this time it's real attention and not just bogus selfie attention. So my advice, stop shooting all those selfies. Plus you don't need to buy a phone. You can buy the cheap iPhone because you won't run out of storage, because 80% of your storage right now is probably selfies. So stop doing that and stop sharing those and just focus on the good stuff, right? I think is that all of point 3? Yeah. The last thing I wrote on point 3 was, God, this hurts. It does. It hurts to have to say this, but I am here saying it. Let's talk about the difference, point 4, the difference between a selfie and a self-portrait. A self-portrait to me, and this, again, just my opinion, could be skewed, could be flawed, could be wrong. A self-portrait is about the image. It's about the actual image. And the person in it, yourself, myself, is an element of the image. But the image itself is about the overall content. The person in it, me, is one element of a greater photograph. That you're basically saying, this is a good photograph, and I happen to be an element in it. That's how I see it. A selfie? Nonsense. Me, 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 me. Look at me. Look at my head. Look at my head from a weird angle. Look at my head distorted from a weird angle with a wide angle. Look at my head again. Look at the other side of my head. Look at the top of my head. Look at the side of my face. Look at all my friends and their distorted heads. I don't see any purpose for those whatsoever. And here's the final point I'm going to say about this. What are we at here? 10 minutes? That was healthy. That was kind of short for me. I'm just getting warmed up. Thankfully, I've got 7 other films I have to make today. A self-portrait, if it's good, can be used professionally. A self-portrait can be used in a book. It can be used at a gallery opening. It can be used to accompany a workshop that you're teaching or a lecture that you're giving. It can be professionally used because it is a standalone image that works, in addition to it being your mug in the photograph. A selfie is useless. You don't use selfies for those kind of things because they're too trivial, they're not good, they're inconsequential, there's zillions of them, there's no point to them other than you saying, look at me. So a self-portrait, I'm not opposed to. It took me 30 years to figure this out, that the faculty at UT was not evil. They were trying to get a point across to me, and I was probably a know-it-all. I was probably like many young photographers thinking, I don't need to know what anybody else did because what I'm doing is so good, nothing else matters, right? Does that sound familiar? Yes, that probably was me. It's not me anymore, but it probably was at one point, and maybe you were in that same camp. So think about it. The next time you whip out your phone to shoot the 712th selfie of yourself during that one period or vacation or trip or whatever it is, just relax and stop and put down the phone. Put down the phone. Get your other camera, put it on a tripod with either an extremely long cable release or a remote, and think just for a minute, how do I make something that I can then use? Like, how do I make an actual interesting photograph with me as an element? And then hopefully if you succeed, you will have something that you can use for books and lectures and galleries and book openings and shows, because clearly you are going to go on to become a wildly successful professional photographer. You're welcome. I'll be back. I forgot, totally spaced out. I'm going to show you a self-portrait right now to try to explain what it is I was talking about. So just to give you an example, because that's how nice I am. I'm providing examples. It's the show and tell portion of our evening. And again, I'll be back. Alrighty, people, I had totally spaced on the fact that I was going to show you an actual, what I would call a self-portrait, as opposed to a selfie. And let me explain myself. This is what I would call a self-portrait. That's me in the middle, London, if I remember correctly, as part of a 4-city blurb tour. I went from San Francisco. I gave a talk, another person gave a talk about software, and a third person gave a talk about book design. And we went from San Francisco to Chicago to London to Amsterdam, I think, and then back. There were 4 cities. I know Chicago was one. I know San Francisco was one. I know London was one. Maybe it was New York. I don't know. I don't remember. I just got off the phone. Since I recorded the first part of this film, which you've already seen, I just spent an hour on the phone with one of the most interesting guys in photography that I have ever met. He's older than me. He is a master black and white darkroom printer. He is a master digital printer. He organizes probably the single best photo event in the United States every year, and just mind-blowing conversation to have. I am very fortunate to have friends in weird places and have these kind of conversations. But let me explain to you why I think this is not a selfie, it's a self-portrait, and why and how I could potentially use this in the future. So let's just break down the image itself. Obviously, the best part of the image is me right here. Just kidding. That's me in London, but what I represent in this image to me is the foreground. That's basically it. I just happen to be the foreground. And I've got a guy here, that's the middle ground of what I would say. I've got a truly ugly white work van here as the third layer, but this is a fourth layer here. This person and that person in my mind right here is very important part of this image. The other important part of the image are these white things, and I honestly do not remember what they are and what they were. They were clearly painted on a surface that I am photographing into. And yes, these are a very important part of this image as well. Maybe you would consider that the foreground. And then I'm the second layer. Well, if I'm going to be second layer, why not put a 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. So 1 would be these white lines. So this to me is an image that is about the components of what I look for in any kind of good image, especially an image with a wide angle lens, is I'm looking to layer those images to build depth inside of a two-dimensional image. And that's what this does successfully. That's why I like this. I think this is a good standalone image. It does not show my face well enough to be used for certain things. I can't use this as a mugshot for my corporate ID badge. That's not going to work. The security guy who doesn't like me anyway is going to be like, take your sunglasses off. I can't see your face. By the way, I think I might be the only employee in the history of Eastman Kodak to have their security badge done while wearing sunglasses. And the guy did not catch it until after the fact, until the badge was already printed. And when he saw it, the guy in charge of the badges, I really felt like I had let him down as a human being. He seemed crushed and said to me, you're the only person that's ever had that happen. So anyway, I felt pretty good about that. I think the camera that I'm using, and don't hold me to this could have been a Contax rangefinder. I can't remember the name of this camera. I loved it. It was a Contax rangefinder that was like the poor man's Leica. The whole thing brand new was like $1,000 or something. Now, it fell apart almost immediately. I had to carry a small set of screwdrivers with me to keep it together. And all throughout the day, I would have to grab the screwdriver and keep the camera screwed together, which I got used to and kind of liked it. I could have used Loctite, but then I figured as soon as I put Loctite on, I'd for some reason need to get into the camera and then it would be forever stuck. So anyway, but this is what I would call a self-portrait. And perhaps the underlying theme is that there was some thought put into the image. Maybe it's that simple. It's just about me building a photograph through the elements available to me instead of just holding out at my arm's length and shooting another picture of the side of my head. I don't know, call me a snob. Do you see how easy that was? Stop fighting me. It's a self-portrait. Wait a minute, I'm a little bundled up in here. Have I told you about my bag fetish? Almost hit myself in the head with it. Tenba, Fulton V2, 14 liter, black camo, weather resistant. I'm actually gonna do a review of that bag. I'm not joking, I'm not kidding, I am, and I'm also gonna give one away to someone who subscribed to my Patreon page. Yes, I'm figuring it all out as I go, people. It's not like I have a master plan. My wife just came in here. It's like a Cat 5. Came in, the wind started, vortex came in. You cannot see what's behind the camera, but it has been wife-ified in 30 seconds, and then she spun around and said, I'll see you later, and left again. And my guess is there's a little bit of socialization going to happen, and frankly, I don't really like to socialize much anymore. Kind of a loner. Oh, forgot to mention, just got approached to do a shoot for someone else. For a brand, I guess you could say. But it's a friend who has a brand, and it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. And I think I'm going to try to, in some way, shape, or form, take you along with me, because this is legit. This is like what people actually want to do as professional photographers, and it just sort of landed on me. But I have a connection to a story that is perfectly tailor-made for what this person is looking for. And the story dates back to my childhood, all the way back to the time when I was probably in 3rd grade. So it's going to be good, and I'm going to take you there. And I'm not going to shoot a single selfie the entire time I'm going to be there. And odds are I probably won't make a self-portrait while I'm there either, but I'll make a lot of portraits of other people. So it'll balance out.